So here I am back in the workbench. What you can see before you is the chassis of the truck, and this brass framework here is what will sit inside of the cab and hold all of the control mechanisms for the various operators, such as the brake and the clutch and the handbrake and the gears. So this is now mounted in here. As you can see, I've done some preparatory work to put the appropriate fixings in, and I've been busy making other components. So the first two that I'll mention are the clutch and the operator for the transmission brake. So they will in fact go, let's get that in there. Oops, missed. I know there's a hole there somewhere. Being very elusive at the moment. There you go. And that one goes on there, and the other one goes on there, like so, and they will be adjusted to allow for the brake and clutch pedal to be in approximately those positions. I've yet to fit the foot pedals on though, but I will do it at a later date. Part of the reason I'm doing this is that this is a very congested area. If I just leave that to one side for a second, what I've been making here is the steering box. So I've manufactured this steering box. You can probably see there's a 0.3 modulus worm gear inside there. I am waiting for a brass gear, but just to get on with it, I used some plastic gears. As you can see on the top, the steering rod, you can see there are 4 little screws which hold the column onto the box, and I'll be putting this box into the vehicle just so that I can work around it. It is a major obstruction to the controls. The other things I've been doing is making levers. So this is the handbrake lever. Hopefully you can see there's a little lever there that moves to operate the ratchet mechanism. This lever actually operates on the rear brakes, the foot pedal operating on a transmission brake. And as you can see, so this basically consists of the end piece, which is being machined to allow that lever to fit in it, and also machined to allow the shaft to go into the headstock. Then I've machined the groove in to make it more realistic, and then I've made a clamping mechanism at the end, which hopefully you can see, which will allow it to be fastened to the operating lever. The other thing I've made is this particular device, which is the gear change lever. So basically there are 4 gears. This lever moves up and down, so at the top it selects gear 1 and reverse, and then it goes down and it engages with the operator for the 2nd and 3rd gears. All of these are kind of ending up with shafts within shafts. So what you can see here is the 2 operating shafts and the gear operating levers, which when I put this on here it will become more apparent, which engage. So in the upper position you can see it's engaged with the upper component, so it's a bit fiddly this, and then if I pull them together and press that down, then it engages with the should engage with the lower components. Obviously all needs adjusting to make it fit properly, but you can see there the gear lever, and then of course I've got the brake goes on the top. So it's quite a complicated little mechanism, basically consisting of this central shaft for the, oops, that's fallen off again, the central shaft for the for the rear brakes, and then we've got these gear selectors, which is two other shafts. I've yet to fit components on the other side, which would actually do the operating, but that's not far away now. So that's some of the mechanisms that I've been working on. So as you can see, just reflect on that again, that's the handbrake. This is incomplete. It's also got to have a spring fitted to it, and the gear selectors, which have to have the actual operating rods fitted onto the other end. But I can only do that once the whole thing is fitted in the frame. So that's where I am to date. Watch this space. Here I am continuing with the controls for the brake and clutch and gearbox, etc., for the Richard Brazier truck. What you can see at the moment is the front of the vehicle. This is the steering box, which I've fitted in. It's not complete, but it's just there so that I can actually align everything else around it. So you may remember last time I talked about these two pedals. Let me just put them on my hand, that'll be clearer. These two pedals. As part of the development process, I've actually put a second tag, which is that tag there. You can see it's not had a hole drilled in it yet, to avoid a clash with actually with the gearbox controls. So, you know, again, part of the process of building is, you know, to work out where the clashes are. You remember last time I spoke about the gear change mechanism. I've now made the two clamps which will be used to operate the gearbox. With those two clamps, I've made a couple of operating rods. As you can see there, I've put ends on them which I can adjust because they're screwed on. These are not cut to size yet, but I'll do that once I've got more of that system installed. At the bottom end of that, there is this set of controls. So basically, the end of the selector rod will be connected to here, which will allow the one gearbox movement, and then there's the other gearbox movement, which is on the outside, which hopefully you can see there. So I've got two operators, a shaft within a shaft, and then the two final operators on the gearbox. I've also got this bit floating in the middle. This is to allow the transmission brake to be operated. So the transmission brake is, just going to show you that, it's buried away down here. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little lever just there which actually operates the brake. So I've got this piece which will sit around here. The connecting rod will come down to that component, so that's one there, and then there'll be another connecting rod which connects to this component. Just put this down and show you this. I've got this component here which will be mounted on the chassis, and there'll be a connection from that little swivel to here which will allow that to come up and down, and the arm on the brake will move with it. So I mean that full action is from the foot brake, a connecting rod which goes down to this little component here, and another connecting rod that goes to this component here, and then finally a short connecting rod which connects to the gearbox itself. So lots and lots of hours spent making little bits and pieces. And then I've got the brake. So much of the handbrake work is actually currently fitted in the device. So from the handbrake there will be a rod that comes down. I haven't built that yet, and it joins with that little piece there that you can see swivelling. On the other side of the chassis is another arm. So when the rod is pulled, both arms will operate. And if you go to the rear of the chassis, there is another arm down here, which you can see there, that little arm there, which will be pulled forward. And these two other arms, there's one on this side of the chassis, or the rod, you can see the other one there. They will be used to connect to operate the brake mechanism. I can just show you that there, so you can see that lever that I'm operating at the moment. That's the brake mechanism, and I've made two connecting rods, or two adjustable connecting rods, which are here, and they'll be used to connect between this operating arm and the operating arm on the brake. Sorry, between this operating arm and the operating arm on the brake. So still quite a few rods and pulls to be made. In the process, I've had to make some new. You can see down there, that's new on the chassis. So there's some pivot points there. I've made this component, which again is another pivot point, and I've yet to make a pair of pivot points for the clutch, which sits in here, and then devise the operating mechanism control rods for the clutch. And then on top of all that, I've got to get these two pedals positioned correctly, and I've also got to make sure that they sit above the floorboards, which, because the floor means that they'll actually be sitting like that when they're in the vehicle. So something like that above the floorboards. And then of course there's a spring return mechanism to be made for those, and there's also a blocking mechanism to stop them going too high on the spring. So still lots and lots of fiddly bits to do. It's all got to be put together and tried before I take it all apart again and then get into doing the final bit, which is painting them prior to assembly of the overall vehicle chassis. So still lots of work to do. Watch this space.